Hey everybody, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to tackle a topic that I've been seeing a lot of confusion in this community about, and a lot of comments about this, and that is 4K restorations on Blu-ray versus 4K restorations on 4K Ultra HD discs. What are the differences? What does it mean that something is 4K mastered but not on 4K? Are they the same? Are they different? There's a lot of confusion. I've seen it in the comments. I've seen it in forums. I've seen it online. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'll explain the differences and sort of give you a buying guide when you go to look at different titles and what to make sure you look for if you want the absolute best presentation. Alright guys, so this topic is one that I've been thinking about doing a video on for a long time, and I'm kind of going off the cuff here. I usually go off the cuff anyway. These are totally unscripted, but I'm gonna give you a quick breakdown on like what mastered in 4K versus 4K Blu-ray really means. And so to start, when I say mastered in 4K, I have a few examples, but one that I actually just got in is a Laurel and Hardy set, and you can see right on here, it says on the back, in new 2K and 4K digital restorations. Okay, so there's 4K digital restorations, but it's on a Blu-ray disc. Another example of that is the Dr. Strangelove Criterion release. This is just a Blu-ray disc, but it says on the back it's a restored 4K digital transfer. And then another example is RoboCop, and this is from Arrow Video. I have the box set here. When you pull the disc out, it says 4K restoration of the film from the original camera negative. And these are all great things. That's what we want, is original 4K transfers from original camera negatives when we can get them. It's excellent stuff. But these are all on Blu-ray disc, right? So some people are asking, well, isn't that the same thing? If I have a 4K TV and I buy a 4K restoration of a movie and it's on Blu-ray, I'm watching it in 4K, right? And that's not the case, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how that works. When they take a movie like Dr. Strangelove and they do a 4K restoration, this used to happen a lot before 4K discs came around, but it's also happening right now with the Paramount Presents Blu-ray line. Those are all mastered in 4K, but on a 1080p Blu-ray. It happens a lot with Arrow Video. Now they're moving into 4K, and it's going to keep happening with Criterion, even with releases like The Elephant Man, Dr. Strangelove, The Great Escape. These are all 4K restorations on a 1080p Blu-ray. And so what basically happens is they go through the exact same process for the 4K restoration that you would if you were putting out a 4K disc with HDR. Typically they do work on the color grading, and they remaster the film, go through it, clean it up in some cases, try to find the best prints they can, maybe splice a few prints together, and they come out with a clean file, a 4K file. But then what they do is they have to take that 4K file and they have to compress it to put it on a Blu-ray disc. And so that's where we lose a little bit of the quality. That's why you're not getting a true 4K release. A typical 4K master, let's say, of a movie is 80 to 90 gigabytes. Now, a Blu-ray disc can only hold 50 gigabytes. So you've got to take that and drop it by, 35-40% in size to get it to fit on a 1080p Blu-ray. Now, with 4K discs, those can hold 100 gigabytes. And so that's why 4K has become the new format, and why you can put these 4K restorations out is because of the 100 gigabyte optical disc, right? So once we have that, we can take an 80 or 90 gigabyte file, put it on the disc, it will all fit completely uncompressed, and that's how you get a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. Now, the 4K HDR format also allows for that HDR color grading, because that takes up a lot of space too. There's a lot of data when that happens. And so it can balloon those files. That's how they get to 80, 90, even maybe 95 gigs. Or in the case of Lawrence of Arabia or Gandhi or longer movies, you actually still have to split them over 2 discs to have a complete uncompressed 4K transfer with HDR. And it just simply wasn't possible on a Blu-ray disc to have a 4K restoration with HDR and fit that uncompressed file. And that really, ultimately, is the only difference, is the disc size. Blu-ray and 4K discs are not inherently that different. They are essentially the same thing, just with more storage. So if you shot a short movie, say you shot a short for a film festival and it was 30 minutes long, and you shot it in 4K and you color graded it with HDR, and your file came out to be 45 gigabytes, you could put that 4K movie on a Blu-ray disc. There's nothing stopping you. All it is storage limitations. And if you have a short, absolutely you could put the 4K on a Blu-ray disc. So that's the really interesting thing, is it's not like there's a new, when we went from DVD to Blu-ray, there was a new blue laser, there was a new way that the discs could be read. We could fit so much more content on there. The discs were able to become bigger, from 25 gigs up to 50 gigs. There's all kinds of technical geek stuff that happened that allowed Blu-ray to happen, but we're using the same technology for 4K. We just found a way to make a larger disc essentially and be able to provide that at a reasonable price point now. And that's really the only difference. So when you look at RoboCop, this is a 4K restoration. It was probably 80 to 90 gigabytes. Arrow Video at the time was not doing 4K discs, so they took it, they compressed it down to probably 40, 45 gigabytes or less, and they put it on a 50 gigabyte Blu-ray disc. So you're getting a 4K restoration minus the HDR, downscaled to 1080p. Now Arrow Video is back into the 4K game, so if they wanted to take this, they have the uncompressed file somewhere, 80, 90 gigabytes, whatever it may be. All they need to do is take that and pop it onto a 4K disc instead of a Blu-ray disc, and do some HDR color grading, which they may have done originally with their original mastering and restoration, and that's it. You have a 4K title. So when you're looking at these titles and you see things that say they're digitally restored in 4K, they 100% are, and they do look better than their Blu-ray standard 2K counterparts or older transfers that were upscales from DVDs or used poor quality. These 4K restorations do look better, so don't get me wrong. Buying a Blu-ray with a 4K restoration is a better choice than a standard Blu-ray. But you're not getting 4K in its purest format. You are still getting a compressed version. A lot of times you can't really tell when it's done super well. So the Criterion release of Dr. Strangelove looked very similar to the 4K Columbia Classics. It was really hard to tell the difference. Slight advantage to the 4K. But in some other cases, there are bigger differences because of the way they did HDR color grading, because the file was more compressed than others. Maybe they compressed that file down to 25 or 30 gigs from 90, and there's a bigger difference there with compression. There's a lot of things going on, but ultimately all you need to know is that 4K discs and Blu-ray discs are the same disc, just with different storage size. You could put a 480p movie on a Blu-ray disc. It won't upscale to 1080p. Your TV will do it, but you're playing a 480p movie on a Blu-ray disc. You can put a 4K movie on a Blu-ray disc. You can put a Blu-ray 1080p transfer up on a 4K disc. You can do whatever you want. But this just kind of, hopefully this explains a little bit of what's going on when you see these titles that are on Blu-ray 1080p and say 4K masters. They have 4K masters. They oftentimes look great, but they just aren't using the 4K disc, and they're most likely compressed to fit onto a Blu-ray disc, and they don't have the HDR, and they also may not have other things like DTS:X or Dolby Atmos. Those take up a lot of space on the disc as well, and that's why with 4K we started to see more Dolby Atmos, more DTS:X, more advanced surround sound that takes up a lot of space in disc space. We can do that with a 100 gigabyte disc that we couldn't with a 50. So at the end of the day, if you buy a 4K mastered Blu-ray, you're not getting a 4K disc. You're getting a great presentation. If you have a 4K TV, it will look better on that 4K TV than on a 1080p TV. But you want to buy 4K discs where you can. So when you see the Elephant Man coming out for Criterion and it has a 4K master, I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. But I personally went and bought the 4K disc from overseas because it's out there, it's available, so why not buy it at its highest quality? If you're buying the Criterion, you're getting a great version of the movie, but it's going to be compressed and it's not the highest quality. You're going to spend the same amount of money either way, so why not opt for the highest quality? So there was a lot in this. I kind of just talked and ranted and gave you my thoughts, but I just think it's really interesting that people people think there's this either there's confusion that they're buying a 4K disc, and then they ask me and they get confused and they say, hey, I bought this 4K disc and I put it on my 4K TV and it's only playing in 1080p. What's up with that? It said it was 4K. And then I have some people asking me, which version do I buy? That's all kind of personal preference, cost, budget, but your 4K disc, your 4K version on a 4K Ultra HD disc is always, for the most part, I haven't run into any that aren't, from what I've heard, going to be that uncompressed original transfer, and your Blu-ray is going to be compressed like they would with streaming services. So you're almost, when you watch a 4K mastered movie that's on a Blu-ray 1080p disc, it's almost like watching a 4K stream, because that's compressed and it's downgraded and the HDR is not great versus a 4K disc. I would compare a 4K mastered Blu-ray to a 4K stream, if that helps at all. So if you guys have any questions about this stuff, definitely let me know in the comments. You can always reach out to me on Instagram or send me an email. It's in my About section on my YouTube page. I try to answer them as fast as I can. I get a lot of stuff, so bear with me. And this just hopefully gives you a little bit of background on the differences between the two formats, why you're seeing these two different things. It all comes down to storage size. That's ultimately what it is. It's about storage size and how much data you can put on the disc. That's really the simple answer. So hopefully this helped. If you guys do want to follow me on Instagram, check out the links down in the description. I have some more videos coming soon, so make sure you subscribe and have your notifications on so you stay up to date on all of those 4K reviews and collection updates and news on 4K movies like the Disney stuff I posted the other day. Make sure you're up to date on all that, and check out all the other links down in my description for ways you can help support my channel. I really appreciate you all. I'm trying to make more videos here now that it's the summer, and I have a little more free time. Things have gotten a little less crazy around the house, especially. We did a lot of work on the house in March and April and May and most of June, just doing projects and renovation and outdoor projects, building patios. So I have a little more time now. I'm trying to create more content. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. But again, let me know if you have any questions. Hope this was helpful. Hope you guys have a great weekend and a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.